The wagon wheels creaked and groaned as they rolled over the dry, cracked earth. Sister Mary Catherine held tight to her small bag and tried not to bounce too much on the hard wooden seat. The desert sun beat down on her black habit, making sweat run down her back. She had been traveling for 3 days to reach this place called Redemption Creek. The wagon driver was an old man named Pete who chewed tobacco and spit brown juice over the side every few minutes. He had not said much during the long trip, but now he pointed ahead with a dirty finger. "There she is, sister." Redemption Creek, what's left of it anyway? Sister Mary Catherine looked where he pointed and felt her heart sink. The town was much smaller than she had expected. Maybe 20 buildings scattered along a dusty main street. Half of them looked empty. The paint was peeling off the wooden buildings, and some had broken windows. Tumbleweeds rolled down the street like lost souls. You sure this is the right place?" she asked. Pete nodded and spit again. "This is it. Used to be bigger. Had maybe 200 folks living here 5 years back. But the drought hit hard and the silver mine played out. Most people packed up and left for California or back east." The wagon stopped in front of a building with a faded sign that said, "General Store." Sister Mary Catherine climbed down carefully, her legs stiff from the long ride. She smoothed her black skirt and adjusted her white headpiece. The letter from the bishop was folded in her pocket. It told her to take care of the old mission church and minister to whoever was left in this dying town. "Thank you for the ride," she said to Pete. "Good luck, sister. You're gonna need it." Pete turned his wagon around and headed back the way they came. Leaving her standing alone in the dusty street, Sister Mary Catherine picked up her bag and walked toward the general store. A small bell rang when she opened the door. The inside was dim and smelled of coffee and leather. Shelves lined the walls, but they were only half full. Behind the counter stood a woman with gray hair pulled back tight. "You must be the new nun," the woman said. Her voice was not friendly. "I'm Mrs. Patterson. I run this store with my husband." "Yes, I'm Sister Mary Catherine. I've come to take care of the mission church." Mrs. Patterson made a sound like she was not impressed. "That old church has been empty for 2 years. Father Rodriguez left when the bishop stopped sending money. Don't know why they bothered sending you." Sister Mary Catherine felt a bow but tried to smile. "Perhaps I can help bring people back to God. People around here are more worried about food and water than they are about God," Mrs. Patterson said. "But I suppose you'll figure that out soon enough." The bell rang again as someone else came into the store. Sister Mary Catherine turned and saw a tall man with broad shoulders and work-worn hands. His clothes were clean but patched in several places. His brown hair was thick and needed cutting, and his blue eyes looked tired. Behind him came 3 small children. The man walked to the counter and pulled some coins from his pocket. His hands shook a little as he counted them. "I need some flour, beans, and coffee if you have it," he said to Mrs. Patterson. "That's all?" Mrs. Patterson asked, looking at the small pile of coins. "That's all I can afford right now." The man's voice was quiet but steady. Sister Mary Catherine watched the children while their father talked to Mrs. Patterson. The oldest was a girl about 8 years old with long brown hair and serious eyes. She held the hand of a boy who looked about 5. In her other arm, she carried a baby who could not be more than a year old. All 3 children were thin, and their clothes were too big for them. Mrs. Patterson packed the man's small order in a cloth sack. "That's everything you asked for, Jacob." "Thank you." Jacob took the sack and turned to leave, but then he noticed Sister Mary Catherine. Their eyes met as she saw something in his face, desperation mixed with a tiny spark of hope. "You're the new sister," he said. It was not a question. "Yes, I'm Sister Mary Catherine." Jacob looked at her for a long moment. The children moved closer to their father, and the little girl tightened her grip on the baby. Sister Mary Catherine could see they were all hungry. The baby was too quiet, and the boy's cheeks were hollow. "Would you like me to bless your purchases?" Sister Mary Catherine asked. It was something she often did for poor families. Jacob's eyes filled with something that looked like tears, but he blinked them away. "Sister, can I talk to you? Outside?" Sister Mary Catherine nodded and followed him out of the store. The children came too, staying close to their father like baby birds near their mother. They stood in the shade of the store's wooden awning. Jakob set down his sack and removed his hat. His hair was damp with sweat. Sister, I don't know how to say this proper. I'm not good with words like educated folks. Just say what's in your heart, Sister Mary Catherine said gently. Jakob looked at his children, then back at her. My name is Jakob Brennan. These are my children, Emma, Michael, and baby Samuel. He pointed to each child as he said their names. Their mother, my wife Molly, died last winter when Samuel was born. Sister Mary Catherine felt her chest tighten. I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you, sister. Jakob twisted his hat in his hands. The thing is, I'm losing everything. The ranch, the cattle, everything. I can't work the land and take care of 3 little ones at the same time. The bank wants their money, and I don't have it. The baby started to cry softly, and Emma bounced him gently. Sister Mary Catherine could see how hard the little girl was trying to be strong. I've been praying every night for help, Jakob continued. And when I heard a sister was coming to town, I thought maybe God was answering my prayers. Sister Mary. Catherine waited for him to continue, though she was starting to feel nervous about where this conversation was going. Jakob took a deep breath and looked straight into her eyes. Sister, I know this is going to sound terrible. I know it's against everything you stand for. But I need a wife, and those children need strong sons to help work the land. Sister Mary Catherine felt like the ground had moved under her feet. What are you saying? I'm asking you to marry me, Jakob said quickly. I know you've made vows to God. I know you're supposed to stay unmarried. But we're all dying here slowly. The children need a mother, and I need a partner to help save the ranch. I'm not asking for love or romance. I'm asking for a business arrangement. A way for both of us to survive. Sister Mary Catherine stared at him in shock. In all her 20 years as a nun, no one had ever asked her such a thing. It was impossible. It was scandalous. It went against everything she had promised to God. But as she looked at the 3 hungry children, she felt something stir in her heart that she had not felt in a very long time. The baby had stopped crying and was looking at her with big, serious eyes. Emma was watching her with hope written all over her young face. Little Michael was leaning against his father's leg, tired and small. I need to think, Sister Mary Catherine said finally. This is not something I can answer right away, Jakob nodded. I understand, sister, but please don't take too long. The bank is coming next week, and if I can't pay them, we'll lose everything. He picked up his sack of supplies and put his hat back on. Come on, children, let's go home. As Sister Mary Catherine watched them walk away, she felt more confused than she had ever felt in her life. She had come to Redemption Creek to serve God. She had not expected to face a choice between her sacred vows and saving a family from ruin. Sister Mary Catherine walked slowly down the dusty street toward the old mission church. Her mind was spinning from what Jakob Brennan had asked her, marriage. The word felt strange and frightening in her thoughts. She had not thought about marriage in 20 years. The mission church sat at the end of the street, looking sad and forgotten. The wooden cross on top was crooked, and one of the front doors hung loose on its hinges. Weeds grew up around the steps. Sister Mary Catherine climbed the steps carefully and pushed open the heavy door. Inside, the church was hot and dusty. Sunlight came through broken windows and made patterns on the wooden floor. The altar was covered with dust and spider webs hung in the corners. But there was still something peaceful about the place. Sister Mary Catherine walked slowly down the aisle toward the front. Behind the altar hung a wooden cross with Jesus carved into it. The carving was old and worn, but the face of Jesus still looked kind and sad. Sister Mary Catherine knelt on the hard floor in front of the cross and folded her hands. Dear God, she whispered, I don't know what to do. This man wants me to break my vows to you. But his children are hungry, and I can see they need help. Please show me what is right. She stayed on her knees for a long time, praying and thinking. Her mind went back to the day she had become a nun. She was 22 years old then, and the world had seemed dark and hopeless. It was 1862, and the war between the North and South was tearing the country apart. Sister Mary Catherine had been called Mary Catherine Sullivan then. She lived in a small town in Illinois with her parents. She was engaged to marry a young man named Thomas McKenna. He was kind and gentle, with laughing eyes and hands that were good at making things, but Thomas had gone to fight in the war, like so many young men. He wrote her letters every week, telling her about the places he saw and the friends he made. He always ended his letters the same way. "I love you, Mary Catherine. Wait for me, and we'll have a wonderful life together." Then the letters stopped coming. The news came on a cold day in November. Thomas had been killed at a place called Antietam. He died trying to help a wounded friend. Mary Catherine felt like her heart had been torn out of her chest. She could not eat or sleep. She could not imagine living without Thomas. Her mother tried to comfort her. "You're young, dear. You'll find love again someday." But Mary Catherine did not want to find love again. Love hurt too much. So she made a deal with God. She promised to give her life to the church if God would end the terrible war and bring peace. 3 years later, the war ended, and Mary Catherine kept her promise. She became Sister Mary Catherine and locked her heart away. Now, kneeling in the dusty church, she remembered how sure she had been that God wanted her to be a nun. But was that really what God wanted, or had she been running away from pain? Sister Mary Catherine stayed in the church until the sun started to set. Then she walked to the small house behind the church where she was supposed to live. It was simple, but clean. Someone had left basic supplies for her, a bed, a table, some dishes, and food. She made herself a simple dinner of bread and cheese, but she could not eat much. She kept thinking about the Brennan children. Emma trying to take care of the baby, little Michael looking so tired and thin. Baby Samuel too quiet in his sister's arms. The next morning, Sister Mary Catherine woke early and said her prayers. Then she decided to visit the Brennan ranch. She told herself it was to offer spiritual comfort to the family. But in her heart, she knew she wanted to see how they really lived. The ranch was 3 miles outside of town. Sister Mary Catherine walked in the cool morning air, carrying her Bible and a small basket of food she had brought. The land around Redemption Creek was dry and brown. She could see why people were struggling. Nothing seemed to grow well in this desert place. The Brennan ranch house was small and made of adobe bricks. The roof needed repair, and one of the windows was covered with boards instead of glass. Behind the house was a small barn and some fenced areas for animals. But Sister Mary Catherine could see only 1 cow and a few chickens. For a ranch, it seemed very empty. She knocked on the front door. Emma opened it, still holding baby Samuel. The little girl's eyes were wide with surprise. "Sister, why are you here?" "I came to see how you're doing," Sister Mary Catherine said. "May I come in?" Emma nodded and stepped back. The inside of the house was clean but very simple. There was one main room with a table, some chairs, and a fireplace. Sister Mary Catherine could see 2 small bedrooms through open doorways. "Papa's outside working," Emma said. "Michael's helping him fix the fence." Sister Mary Catherine looked around the room. There were not many things, but everything was neat and tidy. On one wall hung a picture of a pretty woman with dark hair and kind eyes. She looked like Emma. "Is that your mother?" Sister Mary Catherine asked. Emma nodded. "That's Mama. She died when Samuel was born. Papa says she's in heaven now, watching over us." Sister Mary Catherine felt a pain in her chest. "I'm sure she is." Baby Samuel started to fuss, and Emma walked back and forth trying to calm him. "He's hungry, but we don't have much milk left. The cow's not giving much anymore." "May I hold him?" Sister Mary Catherine asked. Emma looked surprised but handed over the baby. Sister Mary Catherine had not held a baby in many years, but it felt natural. Samuel was lighter than he should be, and his little face was thin. But when she rocked him gently, he stopped fussing and looked up at her with big dark eyes. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "You're a beautiful boy." Emma smiled. "He likes you. He doesn't usually stop crying for strangers." Sister Mary Catherine felt something warm spreading through her chest. She had forgotten how good it felt to comfort a child. The front door opened, and Jakob came in with Michael. Both were dusty and sweaty from working outside. Jakob stopped when he saw Sister Mary Catherine holding his baby. "Sister, I didn't expect to see you here." "I came to visit," Sister Mary Catherine said. "I hope that's all right." "Of course it's all right." Jakob took off his hat and wiped his face with his sleeve. "Emma, can you get some water for our guest?" Emma hurried to get a cup of water from a bucket near the fireplace. Sister Mary Catherine noticed that the bucket was not very full. "How is the work going?" she asked Jakob. Jakob's face looked tired. "Not well, I'm afraid. The fence is falling down, and I can't fix it fast enough by myself. The cattle that are left keep getting out and wandering off. I lost 2 more this week." "Papa works all day," Michael said. His voice was small and worried. "He doesn't stop until it's dark." Sister Mary Catherine looked at Jakob's hands. They were cut and rough from hard work. His shirt was torn in 2 places, and she could see how thin he was getting. "Have you eaten today?" she asked. Jakob and Emma looked at each other. "We had some bread this morning," Emma said quietly. Sister Mary Catherine felt anger rise up in her chest. Not anger at them, but anger at the situation. How could God let children go hungry? How could God let good people suffer like this? "I brought some food," she said, holding up her basket. "Nothing fancy, but there's bread and cheese and some apples." Emma's eyes lit up. "Apples, we haven't had apples in so long." Sister Mary Catherine spent the rest of the morning with the family. She helped Emma take care of Samuel while Jakob and Michael worked on the fence. She cooked a real meal for lunch. The first good meal the family had eaten in weeks. As they sat around the table eating, Sister Mary Catherine watched the children. Emma ate carefully, making sure her brothers got enough before she took more for herself. Michael was so hungry he could hardly talk. Baby Samuel seemed more alert after Emma was able to eat enough to make good milk for him. "This is the best meal we've had in months," Jakob said. "Thank you, sister." Sister Mary Catherine felt tears come to her eyes. "You don't need to thank me. This is what people should do for each other." After lunch, she helped Emma wash the dishes while Jakob put Samuel down for a nap. Michael fell asleep on a blanket on the floor, tired from his morning work. "Emma," Sister Mary Catherine said quietly, "how do you take care of everyone? You're just a little girl yourself." Emma dried a plate carefully before answering. "Mama told me before she died that I was the only one who could take care of Samuel. She said I had to be strong and help Papa, so that's what I do." Sister Mary Catherine felt her heart breaking. This child was carrying burdens that no 8-year-old should have to carry. "What about you?" Sister Mary Catherine asked. "Who takes care of you?" Emma shrugged. "I don't need taking care of. I'm big enough." But Sister Mary Catherine could see that Emma did need taking care of. All of them did. When it was time to leave, Jakob walked her outside. They stood by the broken fence, looking out at the dry fields. "Sister," Jakob said, "I hope what I asked you yesterday didn't offend you too much. I was desperate, and desperate men sometimes say foolish things." Sister Mary Catherine looked at him. His face was honest and kind, even though it was worn with worry. "It wasn't foolish," she said. "It was the cry of a man who loves his children." "I do love them," Jakob said, "more than my own life. I'd do anything to save them. Even ask a nun to marry you." Jakob's face turned red. "I know how it sounds. I know it's impossible. But when I saw you yesterday, something told me you might understand. You have kind eyes, sister, kind eyes and a good heart." Sister Mary Catherine learned that small towns had no secrets. By the time she returned from the Brennan Ranch, half of Redemption Creek already knew about Jakob's strange proposal. Mrs. Patterson had been talking. The next morning, Sister Mary Catherine walked to the general store to buy supplies for the mission church. When she opened the door, the talking inside stopped suddenly. Mrs. Patterson stood behind the counter with 2 other women. They all stared at Sister Mary Catherine like she had grown horns. "Good morning," Sister Mary Catherine said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Sister," Mrs. Patterson said coldly, "I suppose you're here to buy things for your new husband." The other women giggled. Sister Mary Catherine felt her face grow hot. "I don't know what you mean." "Oh, come now," said one of the women. She was short and round with gray hair pulled back so tight it stretched her face. Everyone knows that Irish rancher asked you to marry him. Scandalous if you ask me. Mrs. Pemberton is right, said the third woman. It's not proper for a man of God to even think such thoughts, much less speak them out loud. Sister Mary Catherine bought what she needed and left the store quickly. But as she walked down the street, she could hear people whispering. Some stopped, talking when she passed. Others stared openly. She began to understand how hard this was going to be, no matter what she decided. That afternoon, a man knocked on the door of her little house. Sister Mary Catherine opened it to find a tall man with a silver star pinned to his vest. He had gray hair and tired eyes, but his face was kind. Sister, I'm Sheriff Tom Aldrich. I wondered if I could have a word with you. Of course, Sheriff. Please come in. Sheriff Aldrich took off his hat and sat down at her small table. I'll speak plain, sister. I've heard about Jacob Brennan's proposal. People are talking, and some of them aren't too happy about it. Sister Mary Catherine felt her stomach tighten. I haven't done anything wrong. No, you haven't. But that doesn't matter to some folks. Mrs. Pemberton and her friends are saying you should be sent away. They think you're a bad influence. What do you think, Sheriff? Sheriff Aldrich was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I think Jacob Brennan is a good man in a terrible situation. I think those children need help. And I think sometimes the law and what's right don't always match up. Sister Mary Catherine looked at him in surprise. Are you saying I should marry him? I'm not saying anything official, you understand. But I've been sheriff here for 10 years. I've watched good families lose everything and leave town. I've watched children go hungry while their parents work themselves to death. If there's a way to save the Brennan family, I'd support it. Even if it means a nun breaking her vows? Sheriff Aldrich put his hat back on. Sister, I've seen a lot of suffering in my time. If your God is good, I don't think he wants children to starve. That's just my opinion. After the sheriff left, Sister Mary Catherine sat at her table and tried to think. But her thoughts kept going in circles. She needed to talk to someone who might understand both sides of her problem. The next day, she decided to visit Dr. Sarah Whitmore. The doctor was one of the few educated women in town, and Sister Mary Catherine had heard she was different from the other townspeople. Dr. Whitmore's office was in a small building near the edge of town. A sign outside said Dr. S. Whitmore, Medicine and Surgery. Sister Mary Catherine knocked on the door. Come in, called a voice from inside. Sister Mary. Catherine opened the door and found herself in a clean, bright room with medical instruments on the walls. Behind a desk sat a woman about 40 years old with brown hair pinned up neatly. She wore a dark dress with the sleeves rolled up. Her hands were clean but strong-looking. You must be Sister Mary Catherine, the woman said, standing up. Dr. Sarah Whitmore, I've been hoping we'd meet. Dr. Whitmore, I've heard about you. Nothing too terrible, I hope. Dr. Whitmore smiled. Please, sit down. Would you like some tea? Sister Mary Catherine sat in a chair across from the doctor's desk. Yes, thank you. Dr. Whitmore poured tea from a pot on a small stove. I suppose you've heard the talk about you and Jacob Brennan, Sister Mary Catherine sighed. It seems everyone has heard. Small towns are like that. People need something to talk about, especially when life gets hard. Dr. Whitmore handed Sister Mary Catherine a cup of tea. What? Do you think about it all? I don't know what to think. I've been a nun for 20 years. It's all I know how to be. Dr. Whitmore sat back down and studied Sister Mary Catherine's face. May I tell you something about myself? Of course. I wasn't always a doctor. When I was young, I wanted to be a wife and mother like most women. But my husband died of fever just 6 months after we married. I was 22 and completely lost. Sister Mary Catherine listened carefully. Everyone expected me to remarry quickly. That's what women did then. But I didn't want another husband. I wanted to do something useful with my life. So I went to medical school. That must have been very difficult. Dr. Whitmore laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Difficult doesn't begin to describe it. The other students hated me. The teachers thought I was taking a place that should go to a man. My own family was ashamed of me. But I knew it was what I was meant to do. Why are you telling me this? Because I understand what it's like to have people judge you for making an unusual choice. And I understand what it's like to have to choose between what society expects and what your heart tells you is right. Sister Mary Catherine set down her teacup. But my situation is different. I made vows to God. Did you? Or did you make vows to the church? Sister Mary Catherine stared at her. What do you mean? Dr. Whitmore leaned forward. Sister, I've been taking care of sick people for 15 years. I've seen a lot of death, and I've seen a lot of birth. I've held dying children in my arms, and I've helped bring new babies into the world. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that God, if He exists, cares more about love and life than He does about rules made by men. But the church teaches many things. Some of them are good, and some of them are just ways for men to control other people. You have to decide for yourself what God really wants from you. Sister Mary Catherine felt like her head was spinning. How can I know what God wants? Look at the results, Dr. Whitmore said simply. If you marry Jacob, what happens? 3 children get a mother. A good man gets help saving his farm. Maybe more children are born who grow up to do good things in the world. How is that bad? But I would be breaking my vows. And if you don't marry him, Jacob loses his farm. The children go hungry, maybe even die. A family is destroyed. How is that good? Sister Mary Catherine sat quietly for a long moment. Then she said, Have you seen the Brennan children? Yes, I delivered baby Samuel when Molly died. It was a terrible night. Molly knew she was dying, and all she could talk about was who would take care of her children. What did she say? Dr. Whitmore's voice became very soft. She made Jacob promise to find someone who would love them as much as she did. She said it didn't matter if that person was rich or poor, young or old. All that mattered was love. Sister Mary Catherine felt tears come to her eyes. She sounds like a wonderful woman. She was. And she would want her children to have a chance at life. That evening, Sister Mary Catherine walked through the town. People still stared at her, but now she tried to see them differently. She saw Mrs. Pemberton standing outside her house, talking to her neighbors. The woman's face was hard and angry, but Sister Mary Catherine could see fear in her eyes too. Mrs. Pemberton was afraid of change, afraid of anything that challenged the way things had always been. She saw Sheriff Aldrich making his evening rounds. He nodded to her respectfully. She could tell he was a man who cared more about doing what was right than about following rules that didn't make sense. She saw other families struggling just like the Brennans. Children with thin faces and clothes that didn't fit. Men and women working too hard for too little money. This whole town was dying slowly, and everyone was too afraid or too proud to try something different. When Sister Mary Catherine got back to her little house, she found someone waiting for her. It was Emma Brennan, sitting on the front steps, with baby Samuel in her arms. Emma, what are you doing here? Where's your father? Papa's at home with Michael, Emma said. I came by myself. I wanted to ask you something. Sister Mary Catherine sat down on the steps next to the little girl. What did you want to ask? Emma looked down at baby Samuel, who was sleeping in her arms. Are you going to marry Papa? Sister Mary Catherine felt her throat get tight. I don't. No, Emma, it's very complicated. I don't understand why it's complicated, Emma said. Papa needs help, and you're nice. Samuel likes you, and Michael thinks you're pretty. I think Mama would like you too. How can you know that? Emma looked up at Sister Mary Catherine with serious eyes. Sometimes I dream about Mama. She comes to visit me and tells me things. Last night she told me that you have a good heart and that love is more important than rules. Sister Mary Catherine felt like she couldn't breathe. Emma, are you sure you dreamed that? I'm sure. Mama said that God wants people to take care of each other. She said that's the most important thing of all. Sister Mary Catherine put her arm around Emma and pulled her close. The little girl leaned against her, and baby Samuel made a small, happy sound in his sleep. 3 days later, dark clouds gathered over Redemption Creek for the first time in months. The air felt heavy and electric, and everyone in town looked up at the sky with hope. Rain meant life in the desert Sister Mary Catherine was visiting the Brennan Ranch again when the first drops started to fall. She had been coming every day, telling herself she was just helping with the children. But deep in her heart, she knew she was learning what it might be like to be part of a family. "Storm's coming fast," Jacob said, looking out the window. Lightning flashed in the distance and thunder rumbled across the sky. "It's going to be a big one." Emma was playing with baby Samuel on a blanket on the floor while Michael helped his father secure loose items around the house. Sister Mary Catherine was mending a tear in one of Michael's shirts. It felt natural to be doing such simple, domestic work. The rain started coming down harder, drumming on the roof like 1,000 fingers. Then the lightning got closer and the thunder got louder. Baby Samuel started to cry, frightened by the noise. "I should go back to town," Sister Mary Catherine said, setting down her sewing. "You can't go out in this," Jacob said. "The road will be muddy and dangerous. You'll have to stay here tonight." Sister Mary Catherine felt nervous about spending the night in Jacob's house, but she could see he was right. The storm was getting worse by the minute. Rain was coming down so hard she could barely see the barn through the window. "I suppose I don't have a choice," she said. "You can sleep in Emma's room," Jacob said quickly. "Emma can sleep with me and the boys tonight." As the storm raged outside, the family gathered around the fireplace. Jacob had managed to get a good fire going, and the flames made the small room feel warm and cozy. The children were excited about the rain. It had been so long since they'd seen a real storm. "Tell us a story, Papa," Michael said, curling up next to his father. "What kind of story do you want to hear?" "Tell us about when you and Mama met," Emma said. She was sitting on the floor, holding Samuel and rocking him gently. Jacob's face became soft and sad. "Are you sure you want to hear that old story again?" "Please, Papa. Sister Mary Catherine hasn't heard it." Jacob looked at Sister Mary Catherine, who was sitting in a chair across from him. "It's not a very exciting story." "I'd like to hear it," Sister Mary Catherine said. Jacob settled back in his chair and began to speak. "I met your mama in Ireland when we were both very young. I was 18 and she was 16. Her father owned a small farm next to my family's land." "Tell about the dancing," Emma said. Jacob smiled, the first real smile Sister Mary Catherine had seen from him. "There was a festival in our village every spring. Young people would come from all the farms around to dance and celebrate. I saw Molly dancing with her friends, and I thought she was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen." "What did she look like?" Michael asked. "She had dark hair that curled around her face and blue eyes like the summer sky. When she laughed, it sounded like music. But the thing that made me fall in love with her was how kind she was. She always had time to help anyone who needed it." Sister Mary Catherine listened to Jacob talk about his wife, and she could hear the love in his voice. Even though Molly had been dead for almost a year, Jacob still loved her completely. "Why did you come to America?" Sister Mary Catherine asked. Jacob's face became serious again. "The potato crops failed in Ireland. People were starving. Molly and I had just gotten married, and we knew we had to leave if we wanted to have a future. Was it hard to leave your families?" "It was the hardest thing we'd ever done. But Molly was brave. She said we were young and strong and we could make a good life anywhere as long as we were together." Emma had gotten Samuel to fall asleep in her arms. "Tell about when I was born," she said quietly. "You were born right here in this house?" Jacob said. "It was winter, and the nearest doctor was 2 days away. Molly delivered you all by herself, with just me helping. When I held you for the first time, you looked right at me like you were studying my face. And when Michael was born, Michael came so fast we barely had time to get ready. One minute Molly was making breakfast, and the next minute she was holding a new baby. You were so excited to have a little brother, Emma. You wanted to help with everything," Michael grinned. "Tell about Samuel." Jacob's face became very sad. Samuel's birth was different. Molly had been sick for weeks before he came. When her time arrived, I knew something was wrong. I rode to town to get Dr. Whitmore, but by the time we got back, Jacob stopped talking and stared into the fire. Sister Mary Catherine could see tears in his eyes. Mama held Samuel for a little while before she went to heaven, Emma said softly. She told me to take good care of him. She said he would need extra love because he wouldn't have a mama. Thunder crashed overhead, and lightning lit up the windows. Baby Samuel stirred in Emma's arms, but didn't wake up. I'm sorry, Sister Mary, Catherine said to Jacob. It must have been terrible. Jacob wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. The worst part was that Molly knew she was dying. She made me promise to find someone to be a mother to the children. She said it didn't matter who, as long as they had love to give. Sister Mary Catherine felt her heart racing. What else did she say? She said the children needed to grow up in a family, not just with a father who was too busy working to take proper care of them. She said ... Jacob stopped and looked at Sister Mary Catherine. She said I should find a woman with a good heart, even if she was different from other women. The storm was getting even worse. Rain pounded on the roof and the wind howled around the house. But inside, warmed by the fire and surrounded by this family, Sister Mary Catherine felt safer than she had in years. What about you, sister? Jacob asked. Do you have any stories from before you became a nun? Sister Mary Catherine hesitated. She had never talked about her past with anyone except her confessor. But something about this night, this storm, this family made her want to share. I wasn't always a nun, she said slowly. I was engaged to be married once, when I was young. The children looked at her with wide eyes. Even in 1882, it was unusual for a woman to talk about her life before taking religious vows. What happened? Emma asked. His name was Thomas, Sister Mary Catherine said. He was a good man, kind and gentle. We were going to be married when he came back from the war. But he didn't come back, Jacob said quietly. It wasn't a question. No. He was killed at a place called Antietam, trying to help a wounded friend. Sister Mary Catherine's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly. When I got the news, I thought my life was over. I couldn't imagine living without him. So you became a nun, Michael said. I made a deal with God. I promised to give my life to the church if he would end the war and bring peace. When the war ended 3 years later, I kept my promise. Jacob was looking at her intently. Do you ever regret it? Sister Mary Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Lightning flashed again, and in the brief, bright light, she could see all their faces watching her. I thought I was doing what God wanted, she said finally. But now I wonder if I was just afraid of being hurt again, afraid of loving someone and losing them. Mama always said love was worth the risk, Emma said. She said even if love made you sad sometimes, it made you happy more. Baby Samuel woke up and started to fuss. Emma tried to comfort him, but he kept crying. Sister Mary Catherine stood up and held out her arms. May I try? Emma handed the baby to Sister Mary Catherine. Samuel was very warm and his little face was red from crying. Sister Mary Catherine held him close and began to rock him gently. Humming a song her own mother had sung to her long ago, slowly Samuel stopped crying. He looked up at Sister Mary Catherine with his big, dark eyes and made a small, happy sound. Sister Mary Catherine felt something warm and wonderful spreading through her chest. She had forgotten how good it felt to comfort a child. He likes you, Michael said. He doesn't stop crying for just anyone. You're good with children, Jacob said. You would make a wonderful mother. Sister Mary Catherine felt tears come to her eyes. I've never had children of my own. But you know how to love them, Emma said. That's the most important thing. The storm continued through the night, but inside the house, everyone felt safe and warm. Eventually, the children fell asleep, Michael on the floor by the fire, Emma on the sofa with a blanket, and Samuel in Sister Mary Catherine's arms. Jacob and Sister Mary Catherine sat quietly, listening to the rain and watching the sleeping children. They've been through so much, Jacob said softly. I try to be both a mother and a father to them, but I don't know how. I don't know how to braid Emma's hair or comfort Samuel when he has bad dreams. I don't know how to teach them the things their mother would have taught them. You're doing your best, Sister Mary Catherine said. That's all anyone can do. It's not enough. They need more than I can give them. Sister Mary Catherine looked down at baby Samuel, sleeping peacefully in her arms. His little face was calm and trusting. She thought about Emma, trying so hard to be grown up when she was still just a child. She thought about Michael, working like a man when he should be playing. Jakob, she said quietly, when you asked me to marry you, were you thinking about love, or just about solving problems? Jakob was quiet for a long time. I was thinking about survival, he said finally. The next morning brought terrible news. Sister Mary Catherine was cleaning the mission church when she heard horses coming fast down the main street. She looked out the window and saw a fancy black carriage with 4 horses pulling up in front of Mrs. Patterson's store. A man in expensive clothes stepped out of the carriage. He wore a long black coat and a tall hat, and he carried himself like someone very important. Sister Mary Catherine felt her stomach drop. She recognized him from pictures she had seen. Bishop Martinez from Santa Fe. Mrs. Patterson must have written to the bishop about Jakob's proposal. Now the bishop had come to deal with the problem himself. Sister Mary Catherine tried to calm herself as she continued sweeping the church floor. Maybe the bishop was here for other reasons. Maybe he just wanted to see how she was settling in. But deep in her heart, she knew Mrs. Patterson had told him everything. An hour later, there was a knock on the church door. Sister Mary Catherine set down her broom and walked slowly to answer it. Bishop Martinez stood there looking stern and unhappy. Sister Mary Catherine, he said in a cold voice. We need to talk. Yes, Your Excellency, please come in. Bishop Martinez walked into the church and looked around with disapproval. This place is in terrible condition. I'm beginning to think sending you here was a mistake. I'm working to fix it up, Your Excellency. The people here haven't had a priest for 2 years. Yes, I know. And now I hear they're trying to corrupt the replacement I sent. Bishop Martinez turned to face her with angry eyes. I've heard some very disturbing stories about you, sister. Sister Mary Catherine's hands were shaking, but she tried to keep her voice steady. What stories, Your Excellency? Stories about you spending time at the ranch of a man named Brennan. Stories about this man making improper suggestions to you. Stories about you considering breaking your holy vows. I've been ministering to a family in need, Sister Mary Catherine said. That's my duty as a nun. Your duty is to serve God, not to play house with some rancher and his children. Bishop Martinez's voice was getting louder. I want you to pack your things immediately. You're coming back to Santa Fe with me. Sister Mary Catherine felt like the floor was moving under her feet. Your Excellency, please. These people need help. The children are hungry, and the man is trying to save his farm. That's not your concern. Your concern is your immortal soul, which you seem to be putting in grave danger. But if you leave now, you might still save yourself from committing a terrible sin. Bishop Martinez's eyes were hard and cold. Sister, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. Has this man asked you to marry him? Sister Mary Catherine closed her eyes. She could lie and say no. But lying to a bishop would be just as much a sin as anything else she was considering. Yes, she whispered. He has. And what was your answer? I told him I needed time to pray and think about it. Bishop Martinez's face turned red with anger. To think about it. Sister, there's nothing to think about. You made sacred vows to God. Those vows are not suggestions. They are promises that cannot be broken. But Your Excellency, what if God wants me to help this family? What if breaking my vows is actually what God is calling me to do? God does not call his servants to break their promises to him, Bishop Martinez was shouting now. That's not God speaking to you, sister. That's the devil tempting you with worldly desires. Sister Mary Catherine felt tears coming to her eyes, but she tried to stay strong. The children are suffering. The baby is sick. The little girl is trying to be a mother when she's only 8 years old? How can helping them be wrong? There are other ways to help them. The church has orphanages. The state has programs for families in need. There's no time for that. The bank is going to take their land. They'll lose everything. Bishop Martinez walked closer to Sister Mary Catherine, and his voice became quiet but very serious. Sister, I'm going to give you one chance to save yourself. I want you to come with me right now, back to Santa Fe. We'll say you needed more training before taking on a mission church. No one ever needs to know about this foolishness. Sister Mary Catherine looked around the little church. It wasn't much, but she had been starting to love it. She had been starting to love the work of helping the people in this town. What if I choose to stay? She asked. If you stay, you'll be thrown out of the order. You'll no longer be a nun. You'll have given up your chance at heaven for some earthly temptation. And if I go with you, you'll live out your days in service to God as you promised. You'll have eternal life in heaven. Sister Mary Catherine felt like she was being torn in half. Everything she had believed for 20 years told her to go with the bishop, but everything her heart was feeling told her to stay. I need some time to decide, she said. Bishop Martinez's eyes flashed with anger. You have until tomorrow morning. I'm staying at Mrs. Patterson's house tonight. If you're not packed and ready to leave by dawn, I'll assume you've chosen damnation over salvation. After the bishop left, Sister Mary Catherine sat alone in the church for a long time. She tried to pray, but her thoughts were too confused. Finally, she decided to walk to the Brennan Ranch. She needed to see the children one more time before she made her decision. When she got to the ranch, she found Jacob working on the broken fence with Michael. Both of them looked up when she approached, and Jacob immediately saw that something was wrong. Sister, what's happened? You look upset. The bishop has come from Santa Fe. He wants me to go back with him tomorrow morning. Jacob's face went pale. Did you tell him about what I asked you? I had to. He asked me directly, and I couldn't lie to him. Jacob set down his tools and walked over to her. What did you tell him you were going to do? I told him I needed time to decide. But he said if I don't go with him tomorrow, I'll be thrown out of the church. I'll no longer be a nun? Michael was listening to their conversation with wide eyes. Does that mean you're going away, sister? Sister Mary Catherine's heart broke a little when she saw the fear in the boy's face. I don't know yet, Michael. Jacob sent Michael to the house to help Emma with the baby. Then he and Sister Mary Catherine walked toward the broken fence, away from where the children could hear them. I'm sorry, Jacob said. This is all my fault. I never should have asked you such a thing. It's not your fault. You were trying to save your family. But now I've put you in an impossible position. If you stay and marry me, you'll lose everything you've worked for your whole life. If you go with the bishop, my children and I will lose everything we have. Sister Mary Catherine felt tears running down her face. I don't know what to do, Jacob. I've been a nun for 20 years. It's all I know how to be. But you're so much more than just a nun, Jacob said gently. These past few days, watching you with Emma and Michael and Samuel... You're a natural mother. You love them, and they love you. But what about my soul? What about my promises to God? Jacob was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Sister Ken, I tell you what I think. I think God cares more about love than he does about rules. I think he'd rather see children taken care of than see a good woman waste her life following rules that don't make sense anymore. The bishop says that's the devil talking. Maybe the bishop is wrong. Maybe the bishop cares more about keeping control than he does about doing what's right. That evening, Sister Mary Catherine helped Emma give Samuel a bath while Jacob and Michael finished their work outside. The baby was much happier and healthier since Sister Mary Catherine had been helping to take care of him. He laughed and splashed in the warm water, and his eyes were bright and alert. Sister, Emma said as they were drying Samuel off, are you really going to leave us? Sister Mary Catherine's throat felt tight. I might have to, Emma. It's very complicated. But why? We need you. Samuel needs you. Papa needs you. Sometimes grown-ups have to make very hard choices. Emma was quiet for a moment, concentrating on putting a clean diaper on her baby brother. Then she said, Last night I dreamed about Mama again. Sister Mary Catherine felt her heart start to beat faster. What did she say? She said you're scared, just like she was scared when she had to leave Ireland. But she said being scared doesn't mean you should run away from love. Sister Mary Catherine stared at the little girl. Emma, are you sure you dreamed that? Emma nodded seriously. Mama said that sometimes God asks people to do things that other people don't understand. She said the most important thing is to follow your heart because that's where God really lives. That night, Sister Mary Catherine couldn't sleep. She walked outside and sat on the front steps of her little house, looking up at the stars. Tomorrow morning, Bishop Martinez would expect her to be packed and ready to leave. But she still didn't know what she was going to do. She thought about her life in the convent. It had been peaceful and safe. She had spent her days in prayer and simple work, never having to worry about making hard decisions or facing the complicated problems of the world. But she also thought about the past week with the Brennan family. She thought about the joy in Samuel's eyes when she held him. She thought about Emma's brave little face as she tried to take care of everyone. She thought about Michael working so hard to help his father. She thought about Jakob's gentle hands and kind heart. Sister Mary Catherine woke before dawn on the morning she was supposed to leave with Bishop Martinez. She had barely slept, but her mind was clear. She knew what she had to do. She dressed carefully in her black nun's habit one last time. Then she folded her few other clothes and put them in her small bag. She looked around the little house that had been her home for such a short time, and she felt sad to leave it. But she felt something else too, excitement and hope for what was coming next. As the sun rose, Sister Mary Catherine walked to the Brennan ranch. She found Jakob already outside, feeding their one cow. He looked up when he heard her coming, and she could see worry in his eyes. Sister, I thought you'd be leaving with the bishop this morning. I am leaving, Sister Mary Catherine said. But not with him. Jakob straightened up slowly. What do you mean? Sister Mary Catherine took a deep breath. I mean, I've made my choice. If you still want me to marry you, my answer is yes. Jakob stared at her for a long moment. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. Are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back. I'm sure. I want to help you save your ranch. I want to be a mother to your children. I want to build a life with you. Jakob dropped the bucket he was holding and took her hands in his. Mary Catherine, I promise I'll do everything I can to make you happy. I promise I'll be a good husband to you. And I promise I'll be a good wife and mother. But first we have to go to town. The bank opens at 9 o'clock. Jakob looked confused. The bank? If we're going to save your ranch, we need to convince them to give you more time. And we need to do it as husband and wife. An hour later, Sister Mary Catherine and Jakob walked down the main street of Redemption Creek together. Sister Mary Catherine was no longer wearing her nun's habit. Instead, she wore a simple blue dress that had belonged to Jakob's wife. It was a little big for her, but it made her look like any other woman in town. People stared as they passed. Word had already spread that the bishop was in town and that Sister Mary Catherine was supposed to leave with him. But here she was, walking arm in arm with Jakob Brennan, wearing a regular dress instead of her religious clothes. There's going to be talk, Jakob said quietly. Let them talk, Sister Mary Catherine replied. We're doing what we think is right. The bank was a small brick building at the end of the main street. Mr. Henderson, the banker, was a thin man with spectacles and a permanent frown. He looked up in surprise when Jakob and Sister Mary Catherine walked in together. Mr. Brennan, I wasn't expecting to see you until later in the week. Mr. Henderson, I'd like you to meet my wife, Mary Catherine Brennan. Mr. Henderson's eyes went wide. Your wife? But I thought, isn't this the nun who came to town last week? I'm no longer a nun, Mary Catherine said simply. Jakob and I were married yesterday evening. It was a lie, but they would make it true soon enough. Mr. Henderson looked back and forth between them, clearly confused. I don't understand. What does this have to do with your loan, Mr. Brennan? Jakob and Mary Catherine sat down in the chairs across from Mr. Henderson's desk. My wife has some ideas about how we can make the ranch profitable again, Jakob said. Mary Catherine opened her bag and pulled out a piece of paper. She had spent the early morning hours writing out a business plan. Mr. Henderson, I have connections with Catholic settlements throughout the territory. They need supplies, food, tools, cloth. The Brennan Ranch could provide those supplies if we had time to rebuild. Mr. Henderson took the paper and read it carefully. Mary Catherine had listed 3 different settlements that she knew would buy goods from them. She had calculated how much money they could make in the first year and how much they would need to invest to get started. "This is actually quite detailed," Mr. Henderson said, sounding surprised. "I may have been a nun, but I wasn't always one," Mary Catherine said. "I grew up on a farm and I understand business." "And she's educated," Jacob added. "She can read and write better than most people in town. She can keep books and write letters to customers." Mr. Henderson studied the paper for several more minutes. Then he looked up at them. "Even if this plan works, you'd still need money to get started. Money for supplies, money for equipment." Mary Catherine reached into her bag again and pulled out a small leather pouch. "I have some savings. Not much, but enough to get started." She had been saving the small amount of money the church gave her for 20 years. It wasn't much, but combined with Jacob's remaining resources, it might be enough. Mr. Henderson counted the money and made some notes on a piece of paper. Then he sat back in his chair and looked at them thoughtfully. "I have to admit, Mr. Brennan, this is much more promising than anything you've shown me before. Having a partner who understands business makes a big difference." "Does that mean you'll give us more time?" Jacob asked. "I'll give you 6 months. If you can show me real progress by then, we'll discuss extending the loan further." Jacob's face lit up with relief and joy. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson. We won't let you down." As they left the bank, Mary Catherine felt like she was walking on air. They had done it. They had bought time to save the ranch, but as they walked back down the main street, they saw Bishop Martinez waiting for them outside the general store. His face was dark with anger, and Mrs. Patterson stood beside him with a satisfied smile. "Sister Mary Catherine," the bishop called out in a loud voice, "where is your habit? Why are you dressed like a common woman?" Mary Catherine felt her stomach tighten, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Your Excellency, I'm no longer Sister Mary Catherine. I'm Mrs. Mary Catherine Brennan." The bishop's face turned red. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I've chosen to marry Jacob and help him raise his children. I'm no longer a nun." "This is impossible." "You cannot simply decide to stop being a nun? You made vows, and now I'm making different vows? Vows to love and honor my husband and to care for his children." Bishop Martinez looked like he might explode with rage. "You have damned yourself. You have thrown away your chance at salvation for worldly temptation." Mary Catherine felt Jacob move closer to her, ready to defend her if necessary. But she put a gentle hand on his arm. She wanted to face this herself. "Your Excellency," she said quietly, "I believe God called me here to help this family. I believe love is more important than rules. I believe taking care of children is more sacred than hiding away from the world." "You believe wrong. You have been deceived by the devil." People were starting to gather around them, drawn by the bishop's loud voice. Mary Catherine could see Sheriff Aldrich watching from across the street, ready to step in if things got out of hand. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," Mary Catherine suggested. "There's nothing more to discuss," Bishop Martinez said coldly. "You are no longer a member of our order. You are no longer welcome in any Catholic church. You have chosen damnation over salvation." The words hurt, but Mary Catherine found she could bear them. "If loving and caring for children is damnation, then I accept it." Bishop Martinez turned to the crowd that had gathered. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. This woman has turned her back on God for worldly desires. She is no longer a woman of faith." To Mary Catherine's surprise, it was Dr. Whitmore who stepped forward from the crowd. "Your Excellency, with respect, I think you're wrong." The bishop turned to stare at her. "What did you say?" "I said you're wrong. I've watched this woman care for sick children and help struggling families. If that's not God's work, then I don't know what is." Sheriff Aldrich also stepped forward. "Bishop, I think you should leave these folks alone. They're not hurting anyone. They're hurting the church." They're making a mockery of sacred vows. Seems to me they're just trying to save a family, the sheriff said calmly. To everyone's surprise, even Mrs. Patterson's expression had changed. She was looking at Mary Catherine with something that might have been respect. Mrs. Patterson, the bishop said, you were the one who wrote to me about this scandal. Surely you support the church in this matter. Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I've seen enough families broken apart in this town. Maybe it's time to try putting one back together. Bishop Martinez looked around at the faces surrounding him and realized he had lost this battle. You're all fools, he said. You'll see what comes of supporting sin and rebellion. He turned and walked back to his carriage without another word. Mary Catherine watched him drive away and felt both sad and relieved. She was sad to lose the faith community that had been her home for so long, but she was relieved to be free to follow her heart. Well, Jacob said quietly, I guess we'd better make this marriage official. Mary Catherine smiled. I guess we'd better. Sheriff Aldrich stepped forward. I'm authorized to perform marriages in this county. If you folks want to do this right now, I'd be happy to help. Mary Catherine looked around at the people who had supported her against the bishop. Dr. Whitmore was smiling. Mrs. Patterson was nodding approvingly. Even some of the other townspeople looked pleased. Here? She asked. In the street? Why not? Jacob said. It seems fitting. We're starting a new life together, right here in Redemption Creek. Mary Catherine thought about all the fancy church weddings she had seen over the years. But standing here in the dusty street, surrounded by people who cared about them, The children were waiting on the front porch when Jacob and Mary Catherine returned to the ranch as husband and wife. Emma was holding baby Samuel, and Michael was sitting on the steps, his face full of questions. Papa, Emma said carefully, did something happen in town? Jacob sat down on the steps next to his children and pulled Emma close with one arm. Something wonderful happened. Mary Catherine and I got married. She's your new mama now? Michael's eyes went wide. Really? You're going to stay with us forever? Mary Catherine sat down on the other side of Michael and put her arm around him. Yes, I'm going to stay, if you'll have me. Emma looked at Mary Catherine with serious eyes. What should we call you? Mary Catherine thought for a moment. What would you like to call me? Can we call you Mama? Emma asked quietly. I know you're not our real mama, but ... Mary Catherine felt tears come to her eyes. I would be honored if you called me Mama. Michael grinned and threw his arms around Mary Catherine. I'm so happy. Now we have a mama again. Baby Samuel reached out his little hands toward Mary Catherine, and she took him from Emma. He settled into her arms like he belonged there, and Mary Catherine felt her heart fill up with a love she had never experienced before. That first week of marriage was busy and hard. Mary Catherine had to learn how to be a wife and mother while also helping Jacob try to save the ranch. She woke up before dawn every morning to help milk the cow and gather eggs from the chickens. Then she made breakfast for the family while Jacob went out to work on the fences and tend to their few remaining cattle during the day. Mary Catherine took care of Samuel and helped Emma with her lessons. She had brought her Bible and some other books from the mission, and she used them to teach Emma how to read better. Michael was eager to learn too, so she started teaching him his letters. In the afternoons, she worked on her business plan. She wrote letters to the Catholic settlements she knew, asking if they would be interested in buying supplies from the Brennan Ranch. She also worked on figuring out exactly what they would need to grow and raise to make money. The evenings were Mary Catherine's favorite time. After supper, the whole family would sit together in the main room. Jacob would work on mending tools or fixing things around the house. Emma would practice her reading. Michael would play with wooden toys Jacob had carved for him. And Mary Catherine would hold Samuel, singing to him softly until he fell asleep. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. Within 2 weeks, Mary Catherine received her first replies to the letters she had sent. 3 different settlements were interested in buying food and supplies from them. One needed vegetables and grain. Another wanted beef and dairy products. The third was looking for someone to supply them with tools and household goods. This Could really work, Jacob said as they read the letters together after the children had gone to bed. If we can grow enough vegetables and raise enough cattle, we could make good money. We'll need help, Mary Catherine said. The two of us can't do all this work alone, even with the children helping. I've been thinking about that. There are some men in town who lost their jobs when the mine closed. They might be willing to work for part of the profits instead of wages. Mary Catherine nodded. And we'll need to fix up the irrigation system. The crops won't grow without enough water. They worked together late into the night, making plans and figuring out how to use every bit of their land. Mary Catherine felt excited about their future in a way. She had never felt excited about anything before. The next month brought challenges they hadn't expected. Baby Samuel got sick with a fever that lasted for 3 days. Mary Catherine barely slept during that time, sitting up with him through the nights, cooling his face with damp cloths and trying to get him to drink water. On the third night, when Samuel's fever was at its worst, Emma came into Mary Catherine's room and sat on the bed beside her. Is Samuel going to die like Mama did? Emma asked quietly. Mary Catherine's heart ached for this little girl who had already seen too much death. No, sweetheart, Samuel is going to be fine. His fever is already starting to come down. How do you know? Because I'm his mama now, and mamas don't let their babies die if they can help it. Emma curled up next to Mary Catherine and Samuel. I'm glad you're our mama now. You make everything feel safer. By morning, Samuel's fever had broken completely. He woke up hungry and alert, reaching for Mary Catherine with his little hands. She felt like she had won the most important battle of her life. A few weeks later, trouble came from a different direction. One of Jacob's neighbors, a man named Pete Larson, came to their house with an angry look on his face. Brennan, he said, not even greeting Mary Catherine politely. I hear you're planning to start some kind of big farming operation here. That's right, Jacob said carefully. We're going to grow food and raise cattle to sell to settlements around the territory. Well, I don't like it. This land has been ranch land for cattle grazing. If you start farming it, you'll use up all the water. There won't be enough left for the rest of us. Mary Catherine stepped forward. Mr. Larson, we've carefully planned our water usage. We won't take more than our fair share. Pete Larson looked at her with dislike. I wasn't talking to you, lady. This is men's business. Jacob moved closer to Mary Catherine, his face getting angry. You'll speak respectfully to my wife, Larson. Your wife? Pete Larson spat in the dirt. Everyone knows she used to be a nun. What kind of woman breaks vows to God to marry a man? Can't trust someone like that. Mary Catherine felt her face get hot, but she tried to stay calm. Mr. Larson, I understand you're worried about your own ranch. Perhaps we could work together instead of fighting each other. I don't work with people I can't trust. And I'm warning you, Brennan, if your farming uses up the water supply, there's going to be trouble. After Pete Larson left, Jacob was furious. Don't listen to him, Mary Catherine. He's just a bitter old man who's angry because his own ranch is failing. But what if he's right about the water? What if our farming does use too much? We'll be careful, and if there are problems, we'll figure out solutions. Mary Catherine wasn't so sure it would be that easy. She could see that not everyone in the area was going to be happy about the changes they were making. Despite the challenges, the ranch slowly started to improve. Jacob hired 2 men from town to help with the heavy work. Mary Catherine used her connections to buy seeds and tools at good prices. Together they planted their first crops, corn, beans, squash, and vegetables. Mary Catherine also started a small school in the old mission church. Emma was her first student, but soon other children from town started coming too. Parents were happy to have someone educated teaching their children, and Mary Catherine loved having a way to serve the community. As summer turned to fall, their first crops came in better than they had hoped. The vegetables were healthy and plentiful. The letters Mary Catherine had sent were paying off. They had buyers waiting for everything they could grow. Look at this, Jacob said one evening, showing Mary Catherine their account book. We actually made a profit this month. A real profit. Mary Catherine looked at the numbers and felt amazed. We did it, we really did it. We did it together, Jakob said, putting his arm around her. I could never have done this without you. Mary Catherine leaned against her husband and looked around their small house. Emma was reading a book by the firelight. Michael was building something with wooden blocks. Samuel was taking his first wobbly steps across the room, reaching for his papa with a big smile, 6 months ago. Mary Catherine had been a lonely nun in a dying town, following rules that kept her apart from life. Now she was a wife and mother with a family she loved and work that felt meaningful. Jakob, she said quietly, do you think Molly would approve of how things turned out? Jakob was quiet for a moment, watching Samuel toddle toward them. I think, Molly would be very happy. She always said the most important thing was for the children to grow up feeling loved and safe. They do feel loved, don't they? Look at them, Jakob said. Emma is reading instead of worrying about taking care of everyone. Michael is playing like a child should play. Samuel is healthy and happy. Yes, they feel loved. Mary Catherine watched her children, because that's what they were now, her children, and felt a deep peace settle over her heart. She had thought serving God meant staying away from the world. But maybe serving God actually meant diving deep into life, loving people, and helping families grow strong. Mama, Emma called from across the room. Will you read us a story before bed? Of course, sweetheart, Mary Catherine said, getting up to gather her children around her as she read to them by the firelight, with Jakob working quietly nearby. And baby Samuel falling asleep in her lap, Mary Catherine knew she had made the right choice. This was what God had wanted for her all along, not a life apart from love, but a life full of it, outside. The desert wind blew across their growing fields, carrying the promise of an even better harvest to come. And inside their small house, a family that had been broken was whole again, stronger than it had ever been before. 2 years after Mary Catherine Brennan said goodbye to her life as a nun, she stood in the kitchen of their expanded ranch house, preparing Sunday dinner for her growing family. The smell of roast beef and fresh bread filled the air, and she could hear laughter coming from the main room where the children were playing. The ranch had changed completely. What had once been a struggling, failing farm was now one of the most successful operations in the territory. Their fields were green and productive, their cattle were healthy and numerous, and their business selling supplies to Catholic settlements had grown beyond anything they had originally imagined. But the biggest changes were in the people themselves. Emma, now 10 years old, had grown into a confident, smart girl who helped Mary Catherine teach the younger children at the mission school. She could read as well as most adults and was learning to keep the ranch's business records. Most importantly, she had stopped trying to be a grown-up before her time and was finally able to just be a child. Michael, now 7, was strong and healthy from good food and plenty of play. He worked alongside his father when he wanted to, but he also spent time building forts and catching frogs and doing all the things a boy his age should do. His laugh was loud and frequent, and his eyes sparkled with mischief. Samuel, now almost 3, was a chubby, happy toddler who followed Mary Catherine everywhere, calling her Mama in his sweet little voice. He had no memory of the hungry, frightening early months of his life. To him, Mary Catherine had always been his mother, and their house had always been full of love and laughter, and there were 2 new additions to the family. Mary Catherine smiled as she felt the baby moving inside her belly. She was 7 months, pregnant with twins, the strong sons that Jakob had prayed for when he first asked her to marry him. Dr. Whitmore said they would probably be born in early spring, just in time to see their first harvest together. Mama, Samuel called from the main room. Emma won't let me help with the puzzle. Samuel, you're too little, Emma called back. You'll mess it up. Mary Catherine wiped her hands on her apron and went to settle the argument. This was one of the things she loved most about her new life, dealing with the normal, everyday problems of a family. It was so much better than the lonely quiet of the convent. Jakob came in from outside, bringing the smell of fresh air and honest work with him. His face was tanned from the sun, and his hands were still rough from labor, but he looked healthier and happier than he had 2 years ago. The worry lines around his eyes had mostly disappeared, replaced by laugh lines. "How are my girls doing?" he asked, putting his hands gently on Mary Catherine's round belly. "Your sons are very active today," Mary Catherine said. "I think they're going to be as energetic as their father." "And their mother?" Jacob said, kissing her forehead. "You work harder than anyone I know." It was true that Mary Catherine stayed busy. In addition to caring for her family and helping run the ranch, she had become an important person in the community. The mission school now had 15 students, and she had started a program to teach adult women how to read and write. She also helped Dr. Whitmore care for sick people. Using the nursing skills she had learned in the convent. Just then, there was a knock at the front door. Jacob went to answer it and returned with Dr. Whitmore and Sheriff Aldrich, both of whom had become close friends of the family. "Perfect timing," Mary Catherine said. "Dinner is almost ready." "It smells wonderful," Dr. Whitmore said, giving Mary Catherine a careful hug. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, but good. The babies are definitely getting bigger." "Babies?" Sheriff Aldrich asked with a grin. "I still can't believe you're having twins." "Neither can I, sometimes," Mary Catherine laughed as they all sat down to dinner. Mary Catherine looked around the table and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. 2 years ago, she had thought her life was over when Bishop Martinez forced her to choose between her vows and this family. Now she realized her life had actually just begun. "Dr. Whitmore," Emma said, "will you tell us about the new family that moved to town? The Washingtons? They seem very nice." "They have 3 children about your ages. Mr. Washington is going to work at the new general store." "Are they going to stay?" Michael asked. "A lot of families just pass through." "I think they'll stay," Sheriff Aldrich said. "The town is growing now. We have the school, the medical clinic, and several good businesses. People want to live in places where they can build a future." Mary Catherine knew this was true. Redemption Creek was no longer a dying desert town. As the Brennan Ranch had prospered, other families had been attracted to the area. New businesses had opened. The mission church was full every Sunday, served by a young priest who was much more understanding than Bishop Martinez had ever been. "Mary Catherine," Dr. Whitmore said, "Father Miguel told me he got a letter from the bishop in Santa Fe." Mary Catherine felt her stomach tighten a little. Even after 2 years, she sometimes worried that the church would try to cause trouble for her family. What did the letter say? "Apparently, Bishop Martinez has been transferred to a different diocese. The new bishop is much more interested in helping communities grow than in enforcing old rules that don't make sense anymore." "What does that mean for us?" Jacob asked. "It means the church has officially recognized your marriage," Dr. Whitmore said with a smile. "You're no longer considered to be living in sin." Father Miguel said the new bishop believes that God works in mysterious ways, and that sometimes what looks like breaking rules is actually following a higher calling. Mary Catherine felt tears come to her eyes. She had made peace with being cast out of the church, but it still felt wonderful to know that her decision was being accepted. "There's more," Dr. Whitmore continued. "Father Miguel wants to talk to you about starting a program to train women to be teachers and nurses. The church is starting to realize that educated women can do a lot of good in frontier communities." "That sounds wonderful," Mary Catherine said. "I'd love to help with something like that." After dinner, while Jacob and Sheriff Aldrich talked, Business and Dr. Whitmore helped the children with a project. Mary Catherine stepped outside for some fresh air. The sun was setting over their fields, painting the sky pink and orange. Their cattle were grazing peacefully in the distance, and she could see their hired workers finishing up the day's tasks. 2 years ago, this land had been dry and brown with broken fences and empty fields. Now it was green and productive, full of life and promise. Jacob came out to join her, putting his arm around her shoulders. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," Mary Catherine said. "How much has changed? How different our lives are now. Do you ever regret it? Giving up your old life?" Mary Catherine considered the question seriously. There were things she missed about being a nun, the simplicity, the quiet time for prayer, the sense of being special and set apart. But when she weighed those things against what she had now, never, she said firmly. I thought I was serving God by staying away from the world, but I was wrong. This is how I'm meant to serve God, by loving you and the children, by helping our community grow, by using my gifts to make life better for people. Emma told me something interesting today, Jacob said. She said she dreamed about Molly again. Mary. Catherine's heart skipped a little. Emma still had dreams about her birth mother sometimes, and they were always meaningful. What did Molly say? She said she was proud of how the family had grown. She said she was grateful that you had given the children not just a mother, but also the chance to be part of something bigger, a community, a future, a legacy. Mary Catherine felt the babies move inside her belly, as if they were responding to the mention of their family's history. Do you think Molly really visits Emma in her dreams? Jacob was quiet for a moment, looking out over their land. I don't know, but I know that Emma is happier and more confident than she's ever been. And I know that our whole family is blessed in ways I never imagined possible. The babies are going to be born into such a different world than Samuel was, Mary Catherine said. They'll grow up in a house full of love, in a community that's growing and thriving, and they'll grow up knowing that their mother chose love over fear, Jacob added. That's a powerful lesson for children to learn. As they stood there together, watching the stars come out over their ranch, Mary Catherine thought about the choice she had made 2 years ago. At the time, it had felt like the hardest decision of her life. Now, she realized it had actually been the easiest choice in the world. She had simply chosen love for Jacob, who had been brave enough to ask for help when his family needed it, love for Emma, Michael, and Samuel, who had needed a mother to help them heal from their loss, love for the community of Redemption Creek, which had needed someone to believe in its future, and love for herself, which had meant finally admitting that she deserved happiness and fulfillment. Jacob, she said, when the twins are born, I want to name them Thomas and Molly. Jacob looked at her in surprise. Thomas, that was your fiancé's name, wasn't it? Yes, and I think it's time I honored his memory properly. He died trying to help someone else, just like we're trying to help our community. I think he would approve of what we've built here. And Molly? Because she brought us together, even after she was gone.